They laughed at your silence, underestimated your patience, and mistook your pain for weakness. But what they never realized is that pressure creates power, and isolation builds monsters the world can't control. In the next few minutes, something inside you is going to wake up. Not motivation, not confidence. Something far more dangerous: certainty. The kind that makes fear disappear and success become inevitable. If you've been betrayed, ignored, doubted, or counted out, this message was to find you. Open your mind, lock in your focus, and listen carefully, because after these 10 minutes you won't think the same, move the same, or lose the same ever again. People think pain is designed to destroy you. They think suffering is proof that life chose someone else to win. But what they never understand is that pain is a test only given to people capable of transformation. Weak people run from discomfort. Powerful people are shaped by it. Every sleepless night, every betrayal, every moment you felt abandoned was building something inside you that comfort could never create. While others were distracted by temporary happiness, you were being forced into evolution. And evolution is never soft. The truth is, the strongest version of a person is never born during easy times. It is created in silence, pressure, rejection, and emotional chaos. Think about it. Every time life knocked you down, you learned something people living comfortably will never understand. You learned how to survive alone. You learned how to keep moving while emotionally exhausted. You learned how to smile while carrying battles nobody could see. That is not weakness. That is psychological armor being built in real time. Most people quit because pain scares them. They panic the moment life becomes unfair. But you stayed, even when your heart was tired. Even when your mind was breaking, even when nobody clapped for you. Every painful experience sharpened your awareness. Started seeing fake people faster. You stopped begging for approval. You realized loyalty is rare, trust is dangerous, and peace is earned. Pain opened your eyes in ways comfort never could. There is something dangerous about a person who has already survived their worst moments. They stop fearing loss. They stop fearing opinions. They stop fearing failure because failure already introduced itself to them many times before. That kind of person becomes unpredictable, unstoppable, calm under pressure. While everyone else collapses emotionally when life becomes difficult, you remain standing because difficulty became your normal environment. You adapted to storms while others only practiced in sunshine. People see confidence and think it appeared magically. They do not see the suffering behind it. Real confidence is not loud, it is built quietly through pain. It comes from surviving situations that were supposed to break you. It comes from waking up after disappointment and still choosing to continue. Every scar you carry holds proof that you refuse to surrender. And that refusal is creating a mentality very few people will ever possess. The world respects results but ignores the suffering required to create them. Nobody notices the lonely nights spent rebuilding yourself mentally. Nobody notices the emotional battles you fought silently while pretending everything was okay. They only see the final version. They only see the strength after the transformation is complete. But deep down, you know exactly what it costs to become this person. That is why your energy feels different now. You are no longer desperate for validation because pain taught you self-respect. There comes a point where suffering stops hurting the same way. Instead of destroying your spirit, it starts feeding your ambition. You begin using every insult as fuel. Every betrayal becomes motivation. Every setback becomes another reason to prove people wrong. That is when pain turns into power. Most people never reach that stage because they break too early. But if you are still here listening to this, it means something inside you refused to die, no matter how hard life tried to bury it. You were never being punished. You were being prepared to think differently. Prepared to move differently, prepared to become someone emotionally untouchable. The pressure was never there to weaken you. It was there to remove every soft part of you that could not survive the next level of your life. And once a person understands that their pain had purpose all along, fear loses control over them completely. There is a strange power that grows inside a person when the world overlooks them for too long. At first, it hurts. You wonder why nobody notices your effort, your loyalty, your sacrifices, or your potential. You watch people celebrate others while treating you like you are invisible. You stay quiet while people talk over you, doubt you, underestimate you, and assume you will never become anything important. But what they fail to understand is that silence is not emptiness. Silence is preparation. The loudest people are usually distracted by attention. They crave validation because they need the world to constantly remind them they matter. But when you spend years unnoticed, something different happens to your mind. You stop performing for applause. You stop depending on recognition. You begin building yourself in private. And private growth is dangerous because nobody sees it coming. While people were busy judging you based on your current situation, you were learning discipline. While they laughed at your quiet nature, you were studying people, observing patterns, controlling emotions, and strengthening your mentality. Silence gave you awareness. It taught you who was genuine and who only appeared when things were easy. It taught you that most people only respect power once they can benefit from it. That realization changes a person forever. There is a reason silent people make others uncomfortable. It is because silence creates mystery. People cannot predict someone who does not constantly reveal their emotions, plans, or weaknesses. The world is used to loud individuals exposing everything about themselves for attention. But a quiet person who moves carefully becomes unreadable. And unreadable people become powerful because nobody knows what they are truly capable of. The moment you stopped explaining yourself to everyone, your energy changed. You no longer wasted time trying to convince people of your worth. You realized that those who truly understand you do not need explanations, and those determined to doubt you would never believe you anyway. So instead of arguing, you evolved. Instead of complaining, you focused. Instead of seeking revenge emotionally, you became better silently. That is what scared people the most. People expected your silence to mean weakness. They mistook your calmness for fear. They assumed your patience meant you lacked confidence. But the truth is, silent people often carry the deepest storms inside them. A person who has learned to control emotions instead of reacting impulsively becomes mentally dangerous. Because while others lose control during chaos, you remain steady. You think clearly under pressure. You move with precision while everyone else acts emotionally. The world only notices transformation after it becomes impossible to ignore. At first, nobody respects your grind because results are invisible. They only see the finished product. They never see the lonely hours spent improving yourself while everyone else was sleeping. They never see the emotional pain that forced you to become stronger mentally. They never see the discipline it took to stay focused while feeling misunderstood by almost everyone around you. And then one day, everything changes. The same people who ignored you suddenly notice your presence. The same people who doubted you begin watching you closely. Your confidence becomes visible, your energy becomes heavier, your mindset becomes sharper. Without saying much, you command attention naturally because true power never needs to announce itself loudly. Real strength can be felt before it is spoken. Silence taught you patience. It taught you emotional control. It taught you how to survive without constant support. Most importantly, it taught you that your value does not decrease just because people fail to recognize it. Diamonds stay underground for years before anyone discovers them, but their value exists long before the world notices. Now you move differently. You no longer chase validation because silence helped you discover something greater than approval, self-respect. And once a person truly respects themselves, they stop shrinking to fit inside other people's limited expectations. Fear controls most people without them even realizing it. It controls the way they think, the way they speak, the risks they avoid, and the dreams they abandon before even trying. People spend their entire lives trapped inside invisible cages built from doubt, insecurity, and the opinions of others. They become terrified of failure, rejection, embarrassment, or being judged. And because of that fear, they never discover who they truly could have become. But the moment a person finally understands their real worth, fear begins to lose its power completely. Do not believe in themselves. They search for approval from strangers because they cannot validate their own existence internally. They need compliments to feel valuable. They need attention to feel important. They need acceptance because deep down they are uncertain about who they are. That uncertainty creates weakness, and weakness attracts fear like darkness attracts shadows. But there comes a point where pain forces a person to wake up. After enough betrayal, disappointment, and loneliness, something changes mentally. You stop expecting people to save you. You stop depending on others to define your value. You begin understanding that your worth was never supposed to come from outside validation in the first place. It was always inside you, buried underneath years of self-doubt and emotional damage. Once you truly recognize your value, your entire mindset changes. You stop chasing people who do not appreciate you. You stop begging for opportunities that refuse to open. You stop lowering your standards just to avoid being alone. Why? Because you finally understand that your presence itself has value. And when someone realizes their own value deeply, fear starts collapsing piece by piece. Fear survives through insecurity. It whispers thoughts like, what if you fail? What if they reject you? What if you are not good enough? But when you know your worth, those questions stop affecting you the same way. Failure no longer scares you because your value does not disappear after one mistake. Rejection no longer destroys you because another person's inability to recognize your worth changes nothing about who you are. Opinions stop controlling you because you understand that most people judge based on their own limitations, not your potential. There is something powerful about a person who no longer needs permission to believe in themselves. They move differently. They walk into rooms without trying to impress anyone. They stop over-explaining themselves. They stop shrinking their personality to make insecure people comfortable. Their confidence becomes quiet but undeniable. Not because life became easier, but because they finally stopped questioning their own existence. Most fear comes from attachment. People are afraid of losing relationships, status, money, attention, or comfort because they believe those things define them. But once you discover your inner worth, attachment weakens. Survive loss, you realize your identity is bigger than temporary circumstances. And when a person no longer fears losing everything, they become emotionally free. That freedom changes everything. Suddenly you take risks you once avoided. You speak with honesty instead of fear. You pursue goals that once intimidated you. You stop living cautiously just to avoid criticism. Why? Because your self-worth becomes stronger than other people's opinions. And that is rare in this world. People can sense when someone knows their worth. Changes your energy completely. You no longer seek attention desperately because you are already secure internally. You no longer compete constantly because you understand your path is unique. You no longer panic when others succeed because your confidence is not built on comparison anymore. Real self-worth creates peace, and peace creates power. The world tries hard to make people forget their value. It teaches them to compare themselves endlessly, to seek validation constantly, and to measure success based on external approval. But the moment you break free from that mindset, fear loses its grip on your life, because a person who truly knows their worth cannot be controlled easily. They stop living to impress others and start living according to their own standards, their own vision, and their own purpose. Most people wait for motivation before they change their lives. They wait to feel ready. They wait for the perfect mood, the perfect opportunity, the perfect moment when any suddenly appears and pushes them towards success. But that moment rarely comes. Motivation is unreliable. It disappears the second life becomes uncomfortable. Discipline is different. Discipline keeps moving even when emotions collapse. And that is why disciplined people become unstoppable while everyone else stays trapped in excuses. There are people with talent who never become successful because they lack consistency. There are people with intelligence who waste their potential because they cannot control themselves. Then there are individuals who may not be the smartest, richest, or most naturally gifted, but they develop discipline. Those people become dangerous because discipline eventually defeats talent that refuses to work hard. Discipline is not glamorous. It is waking up when your mind begs you to stay comfortable. It is continuing when nobody supports you. It is staying focused while distractions pull at your attention from every direction. Most people avoid discipline because discipline forces confrontation with weakness. It exposes laziness, inconsistency, emotional instability, and excuses. That is why so many people quit when the process becomes difficult. They want results without transformation, but transformation demands sacrifice. You cannot build confidence while constantly avoiding difficult situations. You cannot create a powerful future while repeating weak habits daily. Discipline forces evolution because it requires you to become someone different repeatedly, even when it feels uncomfortable. Every disciplined action builds identity. The moment you start keeping promises to yourself, your mind changes. Most people break promises to themselves constantly. They say they will start tomorrow, improve next week, focus next month, and every delay weakens their self-respect. Every time you continue despite discomfort, you prove to yourself that your words still carry weight. That internal trust creates real confidence, not fake confidence based on appearance, money, or attention. Real confidence comes from knowing you can rely on yourself under pressure. It comes from understanding that even when life becomes difficult, you will still move forward. That mentality separates powerful people from fragile people. The world is filled with distractions designed to weaken focus, endless entertainment, endless comparisons, endless noise pulling attention away from purpose. Most people become mentally scattered because they allow distractions to control their lives. Discipline protects your focus. It teaches you to control your impulses instead of becoming controlled by them. And a person who controls their mind becomes extremely difficult to defeat. Discipline also changes how people see you. At first, they may not notice. They may still underestimate you based on who you used to be. But consistency creates visible transformation over time. Your energy changes, your habits sharpen, your body language becomes stronger, your standards rise. People begin realizing that you are no longer operating like everyone else around them. While they continue repeating cycles of excuses and procrastination, you keep evolving quietly. The hardest part about discipline is that nobody can give it to you. Nobody can force you to become consistent permanently. At some point, you must decide that your future matters more than temporary comfort. That decision changes everything. Because once discipline becomes part of your identity, excuses stop controlling your life. A disciplined person does not panic during hard times because they trained themselves mentally long before problems appeared. They already learned how to function while tired, stressed, doubted, or emotionally drained. While others collapse emotionally under pressure, disciplined individuals remain focused because they built strength through repetition. Most people underestimate the power of small actions repeated daily. They think success requires giant dramatic moments. But real transformation happens quietly through consistency. One disciplined decision at a time. One uncomfortable action at a time. One sacrifice at a time. Over months and years, those small choices create a version of you that weaker habits could never produce. Eventually, people start asking how you became so focused, so confident, so mentally strong. What they fail to understand is that strength was never given to you. It was built through discipline when nobody was watching. Betrayal changes a person in ways nothing else can. The moment someone you trusted proves they were never truly loyal, something inside you shifts permanently. At first, it feels like destruction. Your mind replays conversations, memories, promises, and moments you once believed were genuine. You question yourself. You question people. You wonder how someone who smiled in your face could secretly work against you behind your back. That kind of pain cuts deeper because betrayal does not come from enemies. It comes from people you once allowed close to your heart. But hidden inside every betrayal is a lesson powerful enough to transform your entire life. The problem is most people stay trapped in the pain instead of discovering the wisdom buried underneath it. They become bitter, angry, emotionally broken, and consumed by revenge. They allow betrayal to destroy their confidence completely. But stronger people eventually realize something different. Betrayal reveals truths that comfort hides. Before betrayal, you often trust too easily. You believe loyalty is common because your intentions are genuine. You expect people to value honesty the same way you do. But betrayal opens your eyes to reality. It teaches you that not everyone deserves access to your energy, your plans, or your vulnerability. That realization may hurt at first, but it protects your future. Because once your awareness sharpens, fake people become easier to recognize. There is something dangerous about a person who has survived emotional disappointment and still chooses growth instead of destruction. Most people expect betrayal to make you weak. They expect you to lose faith in yourself. They expect you to collapse emotionally and stay trapped in victimhood forever. But when you use betrayal as fuel instead of poison, you evolve into someone far stronger than before. Every betrayal forces self-reflection. It makes you examine your standards, your boundaries, your emotional attachments, and your dependence on external validation. You start realizing how often you ignored red flags because you wanted to believe the best in people. You begin understanding that protecting your peace is more important than trying to save relationships built on dishonesty. The pain also changes your mentality. After betrayal, you stop chasing approval carelessly. You become more focused on purpose than popularity. You stop needing everyone to like you because you understand that attention and loyalty are completely different things. Some people clap for you publicly while secretly hoping you fail privately. Betrayal teaches you to pay attention to actions instead of words. Ironically, many of the greatest transformations begin with heartbreak and disappointment. Without betrayal, some people would never discover their true strength. They would stay comfortable, naive, emotionally dependent, and blind to reality. Pain forces growth because it removes illusions. It pushes you into isolation where you are forced to rebuild yourself mentally. And during that rebuilding process, a stronger identity begins forming. You start becoming more independent emotionally. You stop expecting rescue from people who could barely save themselves. You begin trusting your instincts more. Your standards rise because suffering taught you the cost of ignoring your intuition. You realize that protecting your mental peace is not selfish, it is necessary for survival in a world where not everyone has good intentions. There is also a hidden advantage to betrayal that most people never recognize. It reveals who truly belongs in your life. Hard times expose real loyalty faster than easy times ever could. When things fall apart, masks come off. Some people disappear the moment you become inconvenient. Others stay beside you even when they gain nothing from it. That clarity becomes valuable because it saves you years of investing energy into the wrong people. Eventually, the same betrayal that once broke your heart becomes the reason you became wiser, calmer, and stronger. You stop seeing yourself as damaged. You begin seeing yourself as transformed. Every painful lesson sharpened your awareness. Every disappointment strengthened your emotional control. Every fake person pushed you closer toward discovering your true self. And one day, you realize something powerful. The people who betrayed you were never blocking your greatness. They were unknowingly pushing you toward it by forcing you to grow into someone who no longer depends on anyone for validation, direction, or inner strength. Most people never realize how powerful the human mind truly is. They live their entire lives repeating the same thoughts, the same fears, the same habits, and then wonder why nothing changes around them. They blame luck, circumstances, other people, or bad timing without understanding one brutal truth: your mindset shapes your reality long before your results appear physically. The moment your thinking changes deeply, your entire life begins changing silently underneath the surface. Right now, there are people with talent who feel powerless because their minds are filled with doubt. There are people with opportunities who destroy their own future because they cannot control negative thinking. Nothing who still rise because they learned how to master their mentality before mastering anything else. That is the difference between people who stay trapped and people who evolve. The human brain believes whatever you repeatedly feed it. If you constantly tell yourself you are weak, unlucky, unwanted, or incapable, your actions begin matching those beliefs automatically. Fear increases. Confidence disappears. Opportunities feel impossible, but when a person begins changing their internal dialogue, everything shifts slowly. Thoughts influence actions, actions influence habits, and habits eventually create destiny. Most people underestimate how dangerous negative thinking becomes over time. One doubtful thought turns into hesitation, turns into inaction. Inaction turns into regret, and regret slowly destroys self-respect. That is why mindset matters so much. Your life moves in the direction of your strongest thoughts, whether those thoughts build you or destroy you. The moment you decide to think differently, you begin reclaiming control over your future. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as someone capable of adaptation. Instead of asking, "Why is life against me?" you begin asking, "How do I become stronger than what I face?" That single shift changes everything because your energy moves away from helplessness and toward power. A powerful mindset does not mean pretending life is easy. It means refusing to let difficulty control your identity. Strong-minded people still feel pain, fear, stress, and disappointment. The difference is they refuse to surrender mentally. They continue moving forward even while carrying emotional weight. That persistence builds resilience most people never develop because they quit emotionally too early. The mind also controls what you focus on daily. Weak thinking searches constantly for excuses, distractions, and reasons to stay comfortable. Powerful thinking searches for growth, opportunity, discipline, and solutions. Two people can experience the exact same hardship and end up with completely different lives based on how they mentally interpret that struggle. One becomes bitter and defeated. The other becomes wiser and stronger. Your environment also changes once your mindset evolves. You start noticing how many people operate from fear and limitation. You realize some individuals project negativity because they are terrified of growth themselves. That is why confident people often make insecure people uncomfortable. A strong mindset exposes weak excuses without even speaking. As your mentality sharpens, your standards rise naturally. You stop tolerating constant disrespect. You stop wasting energy chasing validation from people who do not value you. You become more protective of your focus, your time, and your peace. Suddenly, distractions that once controlled you begin losing their power because your vision becomes stronger than temporary pleasure. The most important transformation happens internally. You begin trusting yourself again. You stop doubting every decision. You stop waiting for permission to believe in your potential. That self-trust creates a calm type of confidence that does not need attention or approval to survive. And once someone reaches that level mentally, they become difficult to manipulate, distract, or break emotionally. Many people spend years trying to change their external life while ignoring the internal battle happening inside their own mind. But true transformation always begins mentally first. The outer world eventually reflects what happens inside consistently over time. Once your mindset becomes disciplined, focused, resilient, and fearless, your actions naturally start aligning with success. And when a person finally understands that changing their thoughts can change their entire direction in life, they stop waiting for miracles and start becoming one through the power of their own mentality.